Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2000 classic superhero film X-Men. The film is directed and co-written by Bryan Singer and stars Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, Ian McKellen, Famke Janssen, James Marsden, Halle Berry, Anna Paquin, Tyler Mane, Ray Park, Rebecca Romijn and Bruce Davison. Right, this is the first of a long line of X-Men movies, and it focuses on, we are introduced to the world of X-Men, and it's explained that it's like human evolution is kind of skipping a generation, and these mutant genes are developing in young adolescents for the most part, but usually when a traumatic event takes place. But there are those within power at government who are feeling very untrustworthy towards mutants because some of them are very, very powerful, and they are debating whether there should be registered mutants or not. Hugh Jackman plays Logan, also known as Wolverine, of course, and he meets up with Rogue, played by Anna Paquin, who is a young teenager who has just developed mutant powers. He promises to look after her, and he then is kind of taken under the wing of Professor X and the X-Men at a mansion in New York. But Magneto, played by Ian McKellen, is plotting as he believes that there is a war coming between mutants and mankind, and he intends to be on the winning side, and he's got a dastardly plot in the background. Right, what are my thoughts on X-Men? Well, I remember being really excited to watch this film. I've always been a bit of a fan of the X-Men comics when I was younger, and it was one of those things you kind of like, oh, it makes such a great movie, you know, when you think about superhero movies and stuff. So I was delighted when I knew that kind of X-Men was coming to the screen. And I remember the massive debate at the time was who was going to play Wolverine, because Wolverine has always been the most popular X-Men, I think it's fair to say. There were rumours running riot that it was going to be Russell Crowe, who was red hot at the time after Gladiator, but he turned down the role. But he was actually the one, I believe, that suggested Hugh Jackman, also an Aussie like Russell Crowe, to the director Bryan Singer, and he got cast in the role. There were many other names in the running as well at the time, and I don't know how close they got to even being auditioned or even spoke to, but you got people like Mel Gibson, Van Damme, Keanu Reeves, and even Bob Hoskins, strangely, was in the mix, or certainly in the conversation. And some of you may not even know that Doug Ray Scott was actually cast as Wolverine, but had to pull out due to scheduling conflicts, because he'd been cast in Mission Impossible 2. But we got Hugh Jackman, and what a great casting choice that was. And even though I think you could tell as well that it doesn't necessarily look comfortable in the role of Wolverine in some of the scenes and in this film, and that's because he'll admit himself that it took him a little bit of time, because it was cast late, to kind of understand who this character was and how to play him, sort of thing. And we know over the years he has perfected that art and turned his portrayal of Wolverine into arguably the definitive version, and whoever comes next as Wolverine after Deadpool 3, if he is indeed done with the role, they've got a lot to live up to play Wolverine. But I loved this film. I think I went back 2 or 3 times to watch this when it came out at the cinema. I think it balanced the film beautifully between like grounded reality and like, you know, exciting superhero action. I mean, the opening scene with Magneto as a young boy, you know, getting distressed with his parents being taken away by the Nazis, you know, pulling at that gate was just brilliant. And the way they kind of included that in X-Men First Class, you know, expanded on that, should I say, was brilliant too. It it landed it. It felt gritty and real, sort of thing. And the whole debate between politicians and mutants, this whether they should be registered or not. You kind of think, well, that probably would happen in real life if mutants became a reality. There would be debates around should they be registered, should we know who they are, and all that kind of stuff. And it just feels like every time we're introduced to a character, it's pitched just right. How we're introduced to Wolverine, pitched just right. How we're introduced to Professor X, played brilliantly by Patrick Stewart, is pitched just right. All the other X-Men, brilliantly pitched. Sabretooth, and it is worth mentioning as well that the Brotherhood of Mutants, led by Ian McKellen's Magneto. I mean, you wouldn't think Ian McKellen would be like the number one choice for Magneto, but it's just perfect casting. It just works brilliantly. And Mystique, they just absolutely nailed her in this film. And then you've got Toad and Sabretooth. Now, I know a lot of people kind of look at Sabretooth in X-Men Origins Wolverine as that's the version now, because I believe he's going to be turning up in the new Deadpool as well. But I think a lot of people gloss over Tyler Mane's performance here as Sabretooth. It's actually really quite good. You get some pretty good scenes between him and Wolverine. And I think the only time this film kind of falters a little bit is when they focus a little bit too much on the Anna Paquin, like, teenage drama type stuff. I was less interested in that side of stuff, but the film is packed full of epic moments, really fantastic special effects as well, it's worth saying. A lot of people talk about, the Marvel films over the last decade and a half sort of thing, and, how they've revolutionized CGI and stuff like that. Well, we're talking about a film that came out in 2000, and I've rewatched this film for this review, and it's just remarkable. It stands up brilliantly. It looks fantastic. It's got some really fun moments. Some of the comments that Hugh Jackman comes out with as Wolverine, when Mystique copies him, and then Cyclops says to him, he comes through and he says, "It's me," and he says, Cyclops says, "Prove it," and he goes, "You're a dick." It's just fantastic how they kind of, get that banter going between them and all that kind of stuff. I thought Ray Park was brilliant as Toad, who was riding high after playing Darth Maul in Star Wars, and he even does a little homage to his character Darth Maul in the film, which is fans of Star Wars will certainly recognise it when he does it. There's some good fun action scenes. It runs along at a nice tidy pace. It never really feels like it slows down drastically or anything like that. And for me, it was a brilliant introduction to the world of X-Men in movies. And I do sometimes think that people think the only Marvel movies that matter is the MCU that we've had, for the last decade and a half. And I think we're all pretty much tired of that now, and they've overdone it and, stuffed it down as throats, if you like, this MCU universe. And I think if we look a little bit further back, you will see that there is some absolutely fantastic Marvel movies that aren't part of the MCU that need to be revisited, admired, and enjoyed. So thanks for joining me, guys. I will be revisiting all the X-Men films. I'm going to try and do them in the sequence in which they were released, rather than the chronological sequence of them. So coming up, probably as soon as I can, really, will be a review for X-Men 2. So thanks very much, guys. I will, of course, be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.